Hello, gorgeous, and welcome. My name is ECAT, and I own a coaching business called Ruby Ray. I'm a women's personal leadership coach, and I help women in tech and other male-dominated industries overcome self-sabotage and step into full self-expression. And I'm really glad that you're here for this video, because in this video, I'm going to be teaching you about something that I'm very passionate about, which is called soul-centered goal setting. And I'm going to teach you a method for setting goals that is much more fun, authentic, effective, and motivating, specifically intrinsically motivating, which means that it's like self-replenishing. And it's just a great thing to have in your toolkit all around. It's totally going to change the way that you approach setting life goals, New Year's goals, and all that jazz. So first, a little spiel about goals. I don't think I need to sell you on goals because you are here watching this video. Obviously, they help us get things done in life. They help us speed things up and be more intentional instead of being like at the whim of the flowing tides of the universe. And they help us change direction entirely when we need to. And yet, as a coach, I encounter a ton of resistance to setting goals for a lot of different reasons. I think perhaps the biggest one is that there's really a tendency to reactivity in our culture. Everyone's always so swamped and so busy, and we just have this culture of constantly putting out fires instead of being more intentional and proactive. And we aren't used to taking the time or the energy to proactively sit down and plan what we want to create, because there's always something that needs our attention right here, right now, something that is on fire, broken, etc. And so, we don't really take that time to dream or to vision, and we just let things happen instead from our automatic in this way of being. Sometimes the resistance is just pure laziness, of course, but actually that's not as common as you would think. What's much more common is a inner belief or story that goals are limiting. And I've actually discovered in my years of working as a coach that goals are limiting is usually code for I'm a crippling perfectionist or I'm totally terrified of failure. And so when you're coming from that place that everything has to be perfect or it's not even worth doing, or that, failure is not okay, of course you're going to be resistant to goals. Sometimes there's just, a lack of knowing how to set goals in a way that works. So often, for example, we think we're setting goals, but we're just making a giant to-do list, which is not at all the same. And then, of course, there's that special form of resistance to setting goals that I hear from spiritual types, like all my yogis out there, that goals are unnecessary or egoic, or that setting goals gets in the way of the flow of life. And as a fellow person on the spiritual path, I would just like to say that is not at all the case, or it doesn't have to be. And that's really what soul-centered goal setting is all about. It's not the goals that are the problem. It's about where we come from in setting them. And so, the bottom line to all these forms of resistance is that consider that goals are not the enemy. They are not the problem. It's that we don't often set goals in a way that is most likely to lead to our greatest fulfillment. Specifically, we tend to either beat ourselves up about them, or we just avoid them entirely because we are afraid of what might happen. We're afraid of failing. And then we get really upset when, for some strange reason, life doesn't flow us in the directions that we wish it would, because we were just like sitting back on our couch, metaphorically, just laying there waiting for, the perfect person to fall in our lap or to become a rock star or whatever it is. So that's why today I would like to teach you a way of setting goals that is much more expansive, fun, juicy, and that's what I call soul-centered goal setting. So first, though, let's get really clear on soul-centered as opposed to what? Like, what is the alternative way of setting goals that is not soul-centered? Well, it's, the approach that most of us take, and that is an outside-in approach, where we set goals from, the place of trying to fix ourselves or become better because we don't think we're good enough as we are, or that there is enough or that we have enough as is. So it's kind of coming from a place of trying to plug holes or climb higher on, a ladder, basically ultimately coming from a fundamental sense of lack. We also tend to approach goals from a self-image perspective, based in how we want others to see us and how we want to set ourselves. And this is not soul-centered, this is ego-centered. There's a lot of shoulds that come with that, so you can kind of get a clue if you're, if you're coming from that place, if you're hearing a lot of internal shoulds, like, well, I should be there, by the end of the year, or this is what I said I wanted 5 years ago, so I really should continue with that, or I should do that if I want to express or impress XYZ group of people. So what is the alternative? Like what characterizes soul-centered goal setting? Soul-centered goal setting comes from desire versus a place of ought to and should. It comes from what's juicy to you. What does full expression look like? What do you yearn for from the deepest part of you? It's an inside out versus an outside in approach, and not just anywhere inside, but from a place that is much deeper than conditioning. It's about what life wants to do through you versus what you're imposing on yourself. And it's really about living into an expression of the youest part of you, your youest self, your true nature. And it comes from fullness and celebration versus fixing, plugging holes, or trying to live up to whoever's expectations. All right, so now let's move into the actual practice of soul-centered goal setting. Now, for this first part, I recommend taking the time to do this as a meditation. So taking 5 to 20 to beyond minutes to really drop in with yourself. You might start with some deep breathing at first and just get really still and quiet and listen in. And this is important because if you just go straight to writing down or straight to trying to come up with things on the spot, you're much more likely to be coming from your mind and therefore also your ego and just, finding your way into that automatic non-soul-centered approach because that's what we're used to. So that this video isn't too long, I'm going to have you do this meditation on your own. But once you get still and quiet and you've really taken your time to settle and drop in, I invite you to ask yourself questions like the following. What would I go for if I didn't care what anyone else would think? If my ego wasn't involved, what would I want to create right now or in the next 6 months to a year? What is my heart gently being pulled towards? What does the fully expressed version of myself look like the next 6 months to a year? And what does the universe want to do through me next? Now, after you ask yourself those questions, you're probably going to have some good soul-centered stuff to work with. And then from there, what I always have my clients do is come up with a high-level objective for each life project that they're working on or area of life. So if they are looking to manifest a life partnership, a relationship, they might have a project for that, and that will come with one objective and then a set of measures to support it. They might also have a different one for their career and so on. And so let me just give you a couple example of high-level objectives so you get a sense of what those even can look like. Here is a career one. Do work that nourishes me with energy, joy, freedom, creative expression, wealth, and love while I share the bliss of XYZ, your expertise area, with the world. And here's a creative expression one. Share my voice and mission with the world in a way that fuels my life with creativity and passion while making an impact I can see. Those are a few objective examples, but the easiest and most intuitive approach, and I think most common approach, is when you start with a measure or a set of measures, though, and then you work your way to that higher level objective. So it's kind of like a bottom-up approach. When you ask yourself those questions, for example, you probably came up with some specific, tangible things, right? And then to up-level that to an objective, you can ask yourself questions like, what would that give me? What would that make possible? Why is this important to me? And how would I feel and be upon achieving this? So let's say you do that meditation and something comes up for you like, I really want to meditate more. The fullest expression of me is meditating all the time. So then you can take that and ask yourself those up-leveling questions to get to an objective, like, I want to fully and irreversibly realize my true nature, embody that knowing, and live in ecstatic, devoted wonder before and after. This was actually one of my objectives. Still is. Or maybe you came up with something like, I want to be in really good shape. Ask yourself those questions, and what you realize is that what you ultimately want, like why that's important to you, what you think that would give you, is that you want to love yourself unconditionally. You want to feel amazing in your skin, and you want to be completely comfortable being you in any situation. And what's great about that is that you then would naturally probably be in better shape, because with that kind of objective, you're treating your body as a temple. So when we just have measures, which is where a lot of people start and stop, we're not capturing the bigger picture. We're not capturing why that's important and what it is that we really want, just those surface level things we think we want. And of course, maybe we do want them on some level, but like take home buying, for example. You don't want a house just to have a house. You want what you think it will make possible in your life. You want the experience of life that you think having a house will give you. And so that's the thing that you want to, set your sights on. That sense of nesting, a sense of stability, a sense of community. And those are the things to nurture, because then it's like whether or not you get that house, you can still enjoy that experience of life. And even if you do get the house, like you can enjoy the whole process, because there are other ways that you can create that. So it kind of gives you flexibility and openness to realizing, that greater vision you have for the experience of life you want to have in other ways. And it kind of just puts out there to the universe that you don't just want these things and then to be miserable, right? You want to be happy. You want to be fulfilled in these various ways. And then you have measures of how you would like to achieve that. But again, you're not tied to them. And that way you don't just end up with a bunch of like things and achievements that don't ultimately bring you fulfillment. So I hope that makes sense. Now I just quickly want to chat a little bit more about measures to give you some guidance on coming up with those. Measures are really answer the question of what will it look like when you've got an objective? Like what do I want that to look like? What could it look like? And how will I measure that? Of course, you can always adjust your measures. Your objectives are probably going to stay more steady, because again, they're that higher level vision of what you want, how you want to feel, how you want to experience life. But the measures give you something to work towards that, could be a reflection of that. The key, though, again, is to not be attached to them, the specific measures. So when you're coming up with your measures, I encourage you to create a mix of doings, achievings, and feelings. So a feeling would be like, I want to feel comfortable in my skin in any situation, or I want to feel like I have a lot of steady energy throughout the day. Doing is something like that you're committing to do on a consistent, regular basis. So for like a health project, you might have a doing like go to the gym 4 times a week. For a meditation one, it might be like sit for at least 20 minutes every day, that kind of thing. And the achievings should be in the form of what by when. Like start a blog 1 month from now. That would be an achieving. Or, get a promotion in the next 6 months at work. I also recommend creating or like using a mix of tangible and intangible measures, which will naturally happen if you're doing, the mix of doings, feelings, and achievings. A tangible measure is something like journal every day, whereas intangible could be my creative life feels juicy and like it's constantly becoming more rich. Something like that. And just to wrap up, here are a few common pitfalls to watch out for. Being really vague. We want to avoid vagueness where possible. So if you come up with something like, I want to be a better person for either an objective or a measure, like what does that even mean? Let's get more specific for the universe so that you can co-create it together. Get really clear on what it means to you and then name that. Creating no measures is a common pitfall. You just have like your objective, your high level thing, but then it's like, how are you going to track towards that? How are you going to know if you're living it? And, like, how will you put that into practice? How will you get there, basically? Without the measures, it's like just less likely to actually happen. Creating too many measures or getting too aggressive, that's a common pitfall. Writing the goals somewhere and then never looking at them again is a pitfall, or not writing them down at all. So I highly recommend writing them, your objective and your measures, in a place where you're going to see them all the time. And then last but certainly not least, not creating any accountability for yourself. So when we have a soul-centered goal that is like truly really enticing to us, and that feels really alive and is worth working for, it's gonna push you out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, it would already be true. It would already be your life. And our systems are super wired to resist change, to resist ever leaving our comfort zones. So it is invaluable to have a person or a set of people and or structures that will hold you accountable to continue to move forward when it gets scary, or when you don't feel like it, or when you just want to give up because you haven't been seeing enough success. Accountability is critical. All right, that was a lot that we covered today in this video. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about soul-centered goal setting, and I hope that now you will be inspired to create goals in this way versus the old way of like trying to fix yourself, or just creating a giant to-do list, or basing your goals in self-image creation and that alone. I really encourage you to start with what does your soul really yearn for, and then go from there. Using meditation, using centering techniques to tap you into that in the first place, and then using this tool of creating an objective and measures, or the measures and then an objective to support you in that. Enjoy. I hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more videos on personal development type of stuff. There's going to be all kinds of goodies coming your way soon. A big soul-centered goal of mine is to create more video in 2022. So look out for that. And then if you want something right away, something really good that you can dive into, if you want to keep going, you can click the link below to download my free 20-minute masterclass on how to plug your energy leaks and live a life with more Shakti or power. Enjoy.